welcoming you all to an exciting panel. Also, a very good evening to everyone who's joining us from Singapore. It's a fantastic panel lined up ahead, and we are we very warmly welcome you to an panel where we are going to talk about the digitization of automobile dealerships and what's the future of automobile industry in the coming weeks in wake of this coronavirus, and what's looking after the post lockdown period. Today we are joined by some of the finest names in the industry. We have Mr. Shashank Srivastav here, who's the Executive Director of Maruti Suzuki India Limited. We have Mr. Naveen Soni, who's the Senior Vice President of Toyota Kirloskar Motors. We have Mr. Anush Tyagi, who's the Director at HDFC Ergo. And then we definitely have esteemed moderator for today, Mr. Mohit Arora, who's the partner at Mondrian Group and the former head Asia Pacific at JD Power. Mr. Arora is joining us all the way from Singapore, and he basically is responsible for shaping business strategy and driving growth for investing companies across Asia and Oceania. And he has priorly been involved in the automotive industry and continues to do so within the region, and he is presently has an active role in consulting with several OEMs on multiple dimensions of business operations and strategy. So, Mr. Arora, I would like you to take the honor of welcoming all the other panelists. Over to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay. That's a real honor. Thank you very much, Himanshu. I mean, it would be very stupid of me to introduce people like Shashank, or for that matter, Naveen, and of course Anuj. These are luminaries in their field. Shashank is, and I think both Shashank and of course Naveen have been known to me for a very long time. I hope to know Anuj better from now on. But frankly speaking, Shashank is somebody, I don't think that anybody in the auto industry would not know these three gentlemen, and they would need an introduction. And I think briefly all I can say is that it is such an august gathering today, and such an august panel today. We have, the biggest manufacturer in the world represented. We have the biggest manufacturer in the country represented. So frankly speaking, we have, in terms of looking at the gamut of offerings, there couldn't be a broader coverage that we, from what you see today. You have right from a 3 lakh rupee car to a 1.2 crore rupee car is what these gentlemen are responsible for in the Indian market, and together they are responsible for clearly shaping the future of not just the auto industry in India, but frankly speaking, somewhere in the world. Of course, Anuj, I think very briefly, I think he's been again, I would like to use the word cornerstone in a way. I just read something about him, and that was again very fascinating. He's a poet at heart, and I will come back to your poems as we go along. In fact, that is where I will start my discussion with you later on when I come to you. But before I do that, I think what I will have briefly, gentlemen, is sorry, just a second. Let me just share a quick screen here so that we can all look at the same document and set the tone for what we are discussing today. Clearly, I should let me start by saying that these are not very normal times. I mean, these are times when we are all trying to manage our ways somehow, both in our professional and personal lives, in trying to unravel what really lies ahead. And especially if you are a businessman, if you are at the helm of a company which is thousands of crores, I'm sure there will be a lot of restlessness in your minds, a lot of restlessness in your heads. So I think the panel today looks at, how do we see with the current changes, with the current opening up that is coming up, how do we see the way forward? How do we see the world forward? Okay, what is it that we can do in our businesses, whether you are a small from a small town, or whether you are a large dealer from a big town, whether you are an OEM, whether you are a part supplier, whatever it is, whether you are in the business of insurance, whether you are in the business of financing new cars, selling old vehicles, used vehicles, what is it that one can expect as the way forward is something that we are here to discuss. So before I get into that, I just will share a couple of slides with the team, basically looking at, when you look at the overall sales momentum, uh, this is the latest data from LMC forecasting. I also, I can tell you that even IHS Market has been similar kind of a forecast, where you actually look at the sales momentum. It has completely plummeted from a height to something that you see that one would imagine was there about 20 years ago. So if you look at the light vehicle sales, we are talking about a momentum that is about 50 million vehicles globally. If you come closer, looking at markets which are closer to us, the two of the biggest countries in the world, China and India. China, of course, that you see the green line, you were looking at a momentum that was kind of struggling, but that's again plummeted. Of course, I think the last April data has been a little encouraging. People are looking at a strong rebound. But when you look at markets like India, it was on an uptrend, but again, there is a decline that you see. The numbers that you see on the right-hand side are basically the forecaster's vision. And as they say, one thing is for sure, the forecast will be wrong. So with this, I will come to, I will like to bring the panel back in, and probably I would start with you, Shashank.
Yeah.
How does the future look? I mean, what kind of a recovery are we looking going forward once we start to open our dealerships, start our factories? What is the kind of recovery curve that we could look at? What is the kind of what does future hold for us?
Yeah, so I think that's a very tough question to answer.
That's why I asked you.
There are so many uncertainties going forward, especially when we start comparing with some of these are like unprecedented times, and probably such events happen once in 100 years, according to people. You might, of course, have blips in business, and the ones which you showed and compared with in 2009, 8, 9 with the Lehman shock. I think those are ones where the outcome subsequently could have been predicted. I mean, going forward, but here's some, in the case of COVID, for example, it's very difficult which direction it will take, how long it will last, whether a vaccine will be found or not. So we really don't know. However, I would like to say that there is still, I've seen many forecasts where people are saying from about 92 million cars of 2019, probably you'll have something like 72 million cars globally this time, which means a decline of about 26%.
Right.
In US, for example, people are saying it will close down at 13 million or so. So also in China. So there are different forecasts. And I think, as you said, forecasts are forecasts, and probably. So we have always been asking internally as well, and all our discussions with people in the industry and with business, what shape of recovery will happen? So will it be a V? Will it be a Nike swoosh, as they say? Or will it be a L, which means it will remain low for a very long time, a sharp fall and then low for a long? Or what people are increasingly coming out and saying is that it would be something like a bathtub recovery. A bathtub actually falls quickly, stays low for some time, and then comes up again. And of course, in different countries, it will be different. I will probably try to see how we see it in India. So in India, if you ask me, I would say that at Maruti Suzuki, we are quite bullish about India's long-term future, because the penetration of cars in India is less than 27 cars per thousand, one of the lowest in any of the more developing countries. So I think the demography makes it also something which will be very positive in the long run. So I'll try to answer that question, dividing it into two parts: a real short term and a longer term. A longer term, of course, depends on how economy goes. We are bullish about it in the future. But the short term, remember, GDP growth and car sales have got a very high correlation if you look at the past data. So, however, in the short run is going to be dependent on the sentiments which will prevail in the market. And sentiments can change very quickly. Car buying is a discretionary purchase which is based on sentiments. And sentiments have one good thing is that they can change, and they can change very fast. And they have a disproportionate effect on sales. So you could see a bounce back. By the way, we started showroom opening from the 5th of this month, which was allowed by the government guidelines. So we have opened about 1,900 outlets so far, delivered close to 9,000 cars. And we see there is some sort of a pent-up demand as well. Although, as I said, once this spike is over, we have to see how it pans out in the long term. So I'm quite optimistic and definitely bullish about the long term. About the short term, though, it will matter on many factors which I can't really predict at this time.
Right, absolutely. So I think looking at what Shashank just said, Naveen, I mean, how do you see the recovery from Toyota perspective? And again, looking at how are you really preparing or kind of reinventing yourselves to look at or benefit from this reality?
Yeah, thank you, Mohit. I think times are tough, and we need to align to these times. Times are tough, not only tough, but they are unpredictable. So that's a very difficult situation to be in. As a marketer, we like to work on various scenarios, but I think it's very difficult to predict what is going to happen. One of the KPIs that we had inserted at on a daily basis after the dealership started to partly opening up was trying to assess what percentage of the business that they are doing in terms of what if there was no COVID, and the normal business cycle, what are the businesses that they are doing in sales and service, as compared to that in these times, how they're responding. So one of the things which used to always puzzle me is on a daily basis, service was, I was, as I mentioned, it reminded me of the hare and tortoise story. Service was gradually, but slowly, but surely moving in the right direction upwards. And the graph started from 16%, 17% to 19% to now. As of now, there are parts of the country which have crossed even, I think, 70%. I was told this morning. Yeah, 77% is the figure that has crossed service side. But in some parts, but on an average, about 53% of business has come back on the service showrooms, service areas. Okay. But in the sales area is the hare, which is sometimes running, sometimes sleeping. So some days we have about as high as 53, 54% of the normal business, but some days are so low that it depresses you to no end. So I think we have to kind of adapt. And one thing that will be important as from our point of view, from marketing point of view, will be to be agile and flexible. Right. If we can be agile and flexible, I think that would set the tone and manner. And one of the mantras that came to us even from our headquarters was, don't believe the past. Whatever has happened in the past, let it be there in the past. Don't do things because it was done in the past. And the tool that was handed down to us was a simple three-word judgment that we were asked to make on all the things that we do. We were asked to stop anything that we think is not making sense to doing business in the future. We were asked to change most of the things that we are doing in order to align to this new business paradigm, and continue only a minuscule percentage. There was no percentage said, but yeah, generally said that continue doing things which are necessary for the current environment. Don't do these things because they were done in the past, in the tone, manner, spirit, everything. So everything was put under cloud and question and said, please evaluate from stop, continuity, change point of view. And then we started to do this scenario building from that point of view. I think the times are tough, but if we stay agile, if we stay alert, we'll be ahead of the curve. That's how I put it.
Okay, great. So, I mean, look, I think as you rightly said, and I think both of you mentioned about the fact that we are looking at restarting factories coming back online, supply chains coming back online, dealerships opening up, service centers opening up. One of the critical and the most important, part of this puzzle, of course, is the customer, right? And as I think Shashank very nicely said, supply chains don't have emotions, but customers do. Okay, so customers have sentiments, and those sentiments can move one way or the other, rather rapidly or rather dramatically. So in terms of looking at this, living with COVID kind of an environment, how do you see, the customer behaviors changing in terms of, what is it that you are expecting that the likely behavior would be in the next, 6 to 7 months, because that's very important for the frontline dealerships and everybody. What is the anticipation that is there from Maruti and Toyota? The question is to both of you. Maybe Shashank, you may like to address that first.
Yeah, so very apt question, I would say, because during this lockdown period, we had about 150,000 consumers, customers who had either booked their vehicles or were about to book their vehicles,
Right.
because they wanted to take deliveries in March or April when suddenly the lockdown happened.
Right.
So we were discussing with them, and we were obviously in constant touch with them.
Right.
The two things came out very clearly, Mohit.
Mm.
One was that they were very worried about the safety, health safety once the showrooms opened, and whether they would, it would be safe for them to take test drives, or would they want to go to the showroom. And the second part was, of course, that they wanted to do most of this purchase journey on the digital mode.
Right.
So on the first part, of course, we have made SOPs which are for the dealerships, which go beyond the government guidelines of thermal screening or social distancing or such things. So, and we make sure that we are, all our showrooms are following those SOPs strictly. And at the same time, we have to tell the consumer so that we generate that confidence. So we are actually doing a big campaign telling consumers that not only are the showrooms open for business, but also the precautions which we have taken, because it's not just about, if a consumer visits the showroom or takes a test drive, he has to be sure that it is sanitized properly. And every time there is a consumer coming inside a car, you have to sanitize, and those sorts type of norms. So it's not enough to have norms. Of course, you should have norms. It is not enough to implement those norms. You should implement them. Also, the consumer should be given that confidence, and that's what we are trying to do. Second part, which is the digital part, is something which was actually observed in consumer behavior for the last 3-4 years, especially in India, as the penetration of the internet and the penetration of the smartphone, etc., went up. We found that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, all of them had the customer journey started digitally anyway. In fact, in about 90% of the people now, they have actually get information from the net before they come to the showroom.
Right.
And 47% apparently have decided on the variant and the model before they come into the showroom. But then car buying is more involved purchase. So you have many non-digital points as well. Finance, for example, is one of them. So we need to, this message is coming out very clearly. Consumers want more and more stuff to be done on the digital platform. And those companies, those OEMs who have developed a strong digital platforms have actually benefited from it, including Maruti Suzuki. However, there were many skeptics in the dealership network who said that this is probably would not be the case, but they have actually changed, because what COVID has done, what lockdown has done has actually really accelerated this process.
Absolutely.
Both in terms of realization and change of mindset of consumers and also of dealers and OEMs, but also in terms of the inevitability, the realization that it is inevitable and has to be done quickly. And that's what I think most OEM are now focused on, to give that additional comfort to consumers that they can take most of this journey of the car purchase on the digital platform.
Okay, great. So I will come back to that point and maybe dwell upon that a little bit more during the discussion. But let me go to you, Naveen. Again, from what Shashank just mentioned, how is it that you are looking at the change in consumer behavior? Because again, you are serving, you are having a product range which prices itself from what 5 lakhs to over 1 crore. So how do you see the change in customer behavior across the spectrum at this point of time?
Yeah, I think if you fly the aircraft a little lower and understand what is the behavior by segments, by each class of customers, it is different. But I think one thing we have to understand, mobility needs are not going down. Mobility needs will only get increased, and that too in safe mobility will be the punchline. So mobility needs are getting enhanced, but it's a very funny situation. Mobility needs are getting enhanced, but affordability is not increasing.
Right.
I'm not too sure whether I have a job next month, but at the same time, I need a car which can safely travel my family from point A to point B. So that becomes a paradigm shift that we have to adapt ourselves to. Now, in this environment, I think one of the things that can benefit and will benefit, which we are seeing the early signs, is the focus on used car purchase.
Right.
So that is one area where I think people will kind of tend to focus on, because, as I said, affordability not going up, the mobility need going up, then people have to look for options which can serve their needs better. That is one. As far as segmentization of the market is concerned, we were very skeptical as to how different layers of the market will respond. And the high end of the market, there were various hypotheses that were shown to us that that they will not be affected. They have deep pockets. They have this. They have that kind of a scenario. So we would have a scenario where they will rebound faster than normal. To whatever little we have seen now, when we go close to the data and see that requirement from the market or orders coming in from the market, I think it's the top end which is little shaken up. They have just walked away and they are just watching the situation, because I think their awareness of the problem about how severe it is far greater. If I'm an industrialist and I'm running an industry, the responsibility on me to provide so many livelihoods is far more greater than what I would do with a new car. So they have in turn, I think, have been a little cautious. I think they'll come back, but hopefully they'll come back. But the most important thing is that they, at this point of time, are being a little cautious, little more cautious, contrary to what we were told that that these guys have enough deep pockets to survive any momentum, etc., etc. So that is one thing that we are seeing, and the point that we are trying to educate our dealers also is to kind of be more adapted to these requirements of the consumers in terms of mobility needs are going up. Then how will the buying pattern change?
Right.
Will he be interested in, say, kind of leasing options? Will he be interested in subscription options? Will he be interested in buying options? If he's buying, then is he buying new cars or is he buying old cars, used cars?
Right.
So these things have to be kind of judged very accurately, and situation by situation, I think things will be different. But I think I clearly see a shift in the parameters. What has stood in the past is no necessary that will go in the future.
Interesting. So, I mean, look, what you were just mentioning is bringing up a lot of thoughts in my mind. So, Shashank, I think what Naveen is saying is clearly good news for you. I think you are perfectly positioned to take advantage of that. Do you read the market from a segment and used car perspective the same way?
Yeah. So let me tell you, because I thought the question which you had asked earlier was the immediate reaction of consumers.
That's right. Yeah.
But if you look at the market trends, what I expect and what we are expecting from our research and also from the different discussions which we have had, also looking at some of the past such instances, whenever the market, the first point is, whenever the market is under stress, as it is currently, you do see consumers shifting to more reliable, to a more familiar brands, and therefore they tend to be they tend to gravitate towards the brands which are like leading brands, and that I think is clearly a sign which you will see going forward, both from a logical perspective and also from an actual data perspective. Second is, I think, and I think Naveen mentioned it very rightly. We know that shared mobility would probably take a hit in terms of the usage, both in terms of usage of public transport and also in terms of the shared mobility, as we know, in terms of the taxi and that sort of thing. So people will gravitate again towards personal vehicle ownership. That is the second part. And I think Naveen brought it out beautifully, saying that, yes, there will be increased mobility need, but maybe the ride sharing, the ride hailing, the P2P sharing, those all things may take a back seat actually for a very long time to come. So it's good news in the long term for people to start. Third thing, which I'm very quite clear, is that maybe the first time buyers may probably increase, because in the first time buyers, the functionality element, the reason for purchase is a little higher than somebody who's upgrading from, let's say, a higher level, let's say an Audi to something even higher, let's say. So there is this reason for buying will be more towards functionality, which points to a larger increase in first time buyer. And of course, with income levels and GDP levels coming down, which will probably push the market towards a downgrading rather than an upgrading. So by the downgrading, however, let me tell you where I feel I'm seeing it a little different from what Naveen mentioned, or at least that's what I thought he mentioned.
Sure.
I think there is going to be a transfer of demand downwards rather than an elimination of demand in any segment. So maybe the upper segment, which he rightly points out, will probably downgrade to something like a middle. The middle one will probably downgrade to a hatch will to a entry-level car, entry-level car maybe to the used car, and the used car guys maybe to the two-wheeler, because the demand for mobility will increase. And this downgrading means that there is always a shift and not an elimination. So it is not as if the used car segment goes up, the small car buying segment will dry up, because something else will come into the small car buying segment from the upper this thing. So I think for used car, if specifically, I would see there will be a jump, and we have seen that jump. In fact, last year, just for your information, the growth in the used car market in Indian market was about 10%, whereas the new car market degrew by 18%. So there is a huge gap, and this gap is not new. It's been going on for the last 5-6 years. 5-6 years back, used car market was 1.2, 1.3 times the new car market. Today it is 1.6 to 1.7 cars times the new market, the new car market. So I think this trend we will see even this year, probably at a larger scale than what we have seen in the past.
Yeah, so that brings a very interesting point here. When you say that, look, there are certain segments which are likely to benefit with the current dynamics, used cars likely to benefit. How likely are we to see an intensification in the price wars out there? I mean, because I'm sure there are players who would like to do the same telescoping through using the heavy discounting, sales promotions, other things. I mean, how do you see that? I mean, of course, the customer also might like to expect, okay, what are you giving me? What's in it for me? Okay, so there might be an intensification. How do you see the whole dimension of sales promotion, marketing dollars or marketing rupees being spent at this point of time or going forward, at least in the immediate future, the next 3-6 months as we open up? Shashank, you can. I mean, then I'll come to Naveen, but you can start.
Yeah. So Mohit, I believe that it all depends on especially if you look at used cars. If first I'll like to address the used car market first, because I think people will hold on to their vehicles a little longer. For example, in our True Value, the question, the real problem we face is not selling; it is buying. Because we don't have enough people, we can't buy enough vehicles. And I think that problem will actually become a little more tough this year, because people hold on to their vehicles for a longer period of time. So the average holding period actually also went up last year from about 6.8 years to about 7.3 years. And I would expect now 7.3 to become a little higher. So buying might be an issue. So I think we will find lower number of cars. So it's going to be a tighter market, even though it may be a larger market. So as regards the marketing dollars, which you mentioned, both for new car and obviously you can divide the marketing dollar spend in many ways. One way is the one which you mentioned, which segments will grow. So would you like to put more money into a particular segment of buying, whether it's used car or whether it's a new car buyer, first time car buyer, new car buyer, or to the higher end vehicles? That's one way. The other is how do you distinguish it in terms of the media consumption? So you may have, for example, more money spent on the digital marketing rather than on the traditional print, because print is actually taking a hit at this time. Maybe, and you can also divide it by term of genre. For example, you may reduce sports a little bit and increase news, for example, a little bit, or maybe a GC. Maybe the general entertainment, that genre might actually also go up. So there are many ways to divide the marketing spend. And my thought for Maruti Suzuki, I would say, is that we would obviously focus on these first time buyers in the thing, more towards the digital marketing spends, somewhat similar to on television, and maybe more genre would be news and social media rather than on the traditional ones. This, I believe, would be, remember, the marketing dollars themselves may come down. That's a different question altogether.
Right. Naveen, I mean, how do you see the intensification of, price wars or price, discounting in the market?
Okay, I think I'd start with where Shashank ended. Basically, I think I clearly see that there would be spends would be more prudent in the sense that that all companies are clearly visualizing a drop in the top line, so they would see the spend being more prudently used for every dollar that they spend. They would like to see how far that dollar can go,
right,
and how fast they can recover that dollar from that point of view. I think this has to be understood as a starting point. Having understood this, then I think as we go forward, once the recovery signs are becoming more clearer, then I think things will be more visual to us in terms of what we can do, what we should do, what we are supposed to be doing, etc., etc. So these are things that I think will play an important role. I often believe that that the consumer brand loyalty, and as Shashank also mentioned a while ago, I mean, people know what they want. And from that point of view, in these troubled times, this is not going to be a shift from brand A to brand B because somebody is offering him a dollar extra or a pound extra. I think it will be more what he sees his needs and what the product that can fulfill his needs or her needs. So I think that is how we have to view this market with a little bit of caution. Because if we kind of get into a kind of a situation where we're trying to buy customer loyalty, I don't think you can buy customer loyalty in this difficult times. There, I totally agree with him that that people will still look at what they want to buy, and if there's a product that satisfies their needs, then it's whatever best you can do, please do for me. Otherwise, I'm not saying that okay, the other guy is giving me $2 more, so I'll go to him. That's how I like to view this market.
Interesting. So before we go into and explore some of the digitization aspects that both of you talked about, let me just share a couple of slides so that we can kind of reference and see what's happening in the world. Now, if you look at, this is some data points from JD Power across some of the markets. Number of customers shopping for a vehicle online. What you are essentially looking at in a market like US, 70% of customers respond that they have shopped somewhere or the other. The exact number is 69% this year, but it's about 69, 70% every year. China is a little higher. India is about 54%. So fairly large numbers that you see saying that they, in some part of their customer journey, they had an online touch point, whether it was to collect information or whatever else it was. What is very interesting on the other side is that if you actually look at their consumer behavior and you track them through, you actually find that only 5% actually transact online. In fact, the number could be as low, I mean, could be, it oscillates between 4 to 5% on average, where you actually transact online. If you look at a little deeper, and again, I'm just looking at the digital customer journeys right now, a market like US, which, in a way has been the beachhead for many of these experimentations. Of course, China also is there. I don't have the data for China, but I'm just sharing the data for China, for the US for you, for everybody on the present out here. The orange ones that you see are clearly digital touchpoints. But when you look at the largest percentage, 90% is still saying that they physically visited the dealership. Bringing it to the context of India, I mean, if you look at it, how do you see this customer journey evolving in terms of the different touch points? Which of these will move digital faster? Why is it that it is something where markets like US, which have been on it or at it for a long time, are not really being able to capitalize that many transactions? While there is definitely an influence of the digital touch point, the number of transactions actually are not there. So what is it that we need to learn or relay in our touch points internally in India so that customers feel confident that they can actually transact online? Shashank, would you like to take that?
Yeah, so I think the slides that you just showed is clearly a reflection of a large ticket item purchase behavior.
Right.
So like car purchase, normally they say is the second largest value purchase that you make in your lifetime after a house.
Right.
Of course, Mohit, I know you are interested in very expensive watches, so
No,
you
I
may
am
be,
not.
but yeah. Okay, so just joking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no worries.
So you know, there the purchase is more involved, and therefore the physical aspect, and that's
Right.
what I said in the initial question
Right.
when you said the physical aspect may not disappear ever.
Right.
And we are saying that when we say digital, we actually, it's not like a purchase of a book where you can simply order on Amazon and the book comes in, the purchase is over. The car purchase is a much more involved purchase. People would like to have some physical contact either through a test drive or even at the delivery stage, or actually physically see. Just like like if you were to buy a house, for example, you would actually go and see how is the the neighborhood and things like that. So I
Right.
think that way. So what we are talking is phygital. We are not
Right.
talking only of digital. And I think the whole question which people are either will it become fully digital, will it become,
Right.
probably not true. And I think
Right.
the data which you just showed clearly points to that.
Right.
And the important thing, however, is Mohit, that of the touch points that consumer has from the time when he decides to, when he thinks of buying a car to when he takes delivery,
Right.
how many of those touch points can you make it digital is the question.
Right.
Today, for example, on a e-finance space, like on a financing part, when people go to the bank, do this documentation back and forth, that part is still not digital in India.
Right.
In China, for example, it is so.
Right.
So so OEMs would probably start focusing on that aspect to make it digital. However, test drive and actual delivery might still, still remain
As a physical.
So I would like to use the word phygital rather than digital alone in that.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep that word phygital with me, and I'm going to use that. I will give you the royalties for that. But Naveen, how do you see the phygital world going forward?
Yeah, I think close to what Shashank is saying. I think we also saw a shift in people's digital journey when this entire thing started.
Right.
And but we have to be mindful of the fact that that at that stage there was no choices given. If somebody is trying to show an interest to buy a car during COVID times, definitely he has a desperate need to buy a car. And then only he's trying to reach out to us. And then he looks at any possible way to reach out to the OEM or its dealers. So therefore, the digital journey was kind of hastened up with us because of this. Because there was only one way that he could have reached to OEM or the dealers was through the digital world. So during that time when dealerships, as I said, we are measuring how many percentage of the dealerships. As of now, it's about 77% of the dealerships are working. So the scenario is very different for us. But when it started, it was like 20% of the dealerships are working. And they are also working at 20% capacity. Okay? So it's practically 4% of the dealerships is working. Of that 4%, 70% of the inquiries were coming as digital. So it is very good to, one of my earlier bosses used to say percentages hide a lot. They don't tell you the true story, So in this case, 70% of the total orders are coming on digital is a very bold statement to make. But if you go carefully look at this, it's just 3.2% of your normal business that is coming digitally, which is what it was, which is lower than what it was probably before COVID started. Since there was no other way that he could have reached out to you, so therefore he's given the choice only of digital connect. But I often say this, that we have to kind of map the consumer psyche at first, and then propose a digital program that encompasses that. It would be very wrong for us to, kind of prejudge that, okay, this is what he was behaving and this is how he will be behaved in the future. And then define an SOP based on that. SOP or a digital world will only replace what the consumer is likely to behave.
Exactly.
And then we facilitate that process through a digital connect. And this is what we are trying to do at this point of time, rather than rush into, because I'll give you a small example. I remember a few days back, I was online. I'm not on LinkedIn, yes, of course, but I was checking around, that what are people saying about Toyota? And I came across this very nice mention of a particular dealership in somewhere in Delhi. And the person said that, the lady said that, that this person at this dealership has built my confidence on this brand, Toyota. And whatever you may say, but it's finally the end touch point. So I was so curious. I traced that sales officer, and that Saturday afternoon, I gave him a call and I said, "What was the incident? Let me know. I want to know what actually happened." And he described to me, and you would not believe what he said. He said that 7:30 in the evening, the call came, and that lady says, "I want a car.
Right.
Okay, I want this particular car." And I was looking around and tell me what is the offer. If you give me a good offer, I'll take from you. Otherwise, I'll move on. Otherwise, everything I've checked online. I'm convinced.
Right.
So what turned around the whole thing, was one sentence that this boy came, very confident guy. He told this lady, he said, "Madam, if you buy a suit, salwar suit, which is worth 1,000 rupees, don't you go in the market and check it out by yourself?" She said, "Yes, I do." So I said, "Okay, then why are you spending 10 lakh rupees on a car without checking out the car itself?"
Right.
So he went contrary to digital, and that seems to have changed the perception of this person. And after that, she started trusting him so much that even when there was a slight delay in registration, etc., because of COVID situation, she was with him. And she said, "This is how customers have to be handled."
Yeah, great anecdote.
Things change.
I think that's a very interesting. I mean, I think, of course, there is a lot of that element that we can talk about. But of course, we also need to I understand that, digitalization is a journey right now. And again, one of the important revenue streams for a dealership tends to be from the F&I part, looking at the finance and insurance element. Anuj, I'm sorry to keep you waiting for so long, but now, in fact, there is a large audience present here. Of course, Anuj, as you know, is a part of HDFC Ergo, but he is, as I said, I'm just starting to know him. And as I was looking him up, I realized that he's actually a poet. And one of his, I request all the 300 plus people who are present right now to really go online to YouTube and look for his composition titled Coronavirus. In fact, I'm going to start with just quote one line with your permission, Anuj, which basically says, "Coronavirus ne macha diya hai charo taraf hadkamp. Kahar hua hai itna bhayanak ki haar maan gaya hai atom bomb." So I think coming to you, Anuj, auto insurance industry में कितना कहर आया है? I mean, what is the level of business impact? Level of business impact that has happened for the auto insurance sector and for HDFC Ergo. Could you share something about it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mohit, and thank you, Anuj. See, when I was listening to Shashank and Naveen, Mohit, I was actually absorbing. So thank you. I must thank you that you allowed me to listen to them, because I absorbed a lot of stuff that they said, and I'll try and connect the dots during the conversation. But coming back to what COVID has done to the insurance industry and specifically auto industry, we are a potpourri of various industries. So whatever happens to automobiles will have a direct impact on insurance. Whatever will happen to retail financing will have an impact on insurance, and manufacturing. Everything will have an impact on insurance. So are we insulated from the COVID impact? If the two large manufacturers are saying that they're impacted, I am bound to get impacted as an industry. But where I come from, when I look at the entire insurance through the impact of COVID through the prism of insurance, it's been good and bad both. Bad has been slightly because the business has taken an impact. Obviously, and automobiles, motor insurance is roughly about 36-37% of the 190,000 crore general insurance industry. So it's a very, very sizable constituent of the general insurance industry. And we were coming in from a period of degrowth in the automobile underlying sales. We entered a period where we suddenly saw the huge impact arising out of the COVID. So we've had an impact on our growth, on our industry premium, especially the new premium of the general insurance. The good part is that, as you're aware, insurance is an anniversary product. So in most cases, people will come and have to renew their policy every year. As we were fearing when Corona happened that our entire industry will take a beating. The renewal rates, the annual renewal rates of our insurance policies actually did not dip, which gives me a huge comfort that the awareness about insurance as a risk mitigation tool in the eyes of the customer is increasing. Customers were aware of the fact, notwithstanding the situation that the fulfillment was not happening. So my dealerships were possibly not functioning, which play a very huge role. Roughly about 30% of the car motor insurance is actually done by the OEM. So if you see at an industry level, we're talking of 11-12% of the industry premium coming from OEMs alone. So if the OEMs did not know of their might in the insurance spectrum, I think it's time for them to also realize that they play a huge sizable role in the insurance economy. So notwithstanding the fact that the dealerships were shut, notwithstanding the fact that agents who play a role were shut, notwithstanding the fact that the banking system was also struggling, the renewal rates still went up. And Shashank ji said and Naveen ji said digital. I'm saying I come from an industry which is actually talking of going completely digital and now saying, boss, if the customer wants, right from the selling till the claim, customer doesn't need to see my face. So we've had, as I said, we've had a negative impact where the sales took a beating. We've had a positive impact. The other impact positive that I saw, and in my opinion, the insurance industry as a whole rose to the occasion. The digitization of the extent of digitization in insurance is fairly high. But this is like I have opened a good restaurant, swanky restaurant, but there are no customers. So we were digitized, but the customers were not taking the digital route, right? My dealerships were not adopting, especially in servicing. My agents were not adopting because of Corona. Customers and the channels, everybody adopted digital. So today, I mean, it's a very, very positive, and which obviously means that the entire servicing spectrum to the customer changes. I mean, for us specifically, yes, again, the business has taken a bit of a beating, but I mean, I tell you, we issued last year about 1 crore policy in the company in total, motor, health, all together. Roughly about 96% of these policies were issued in a touch-free mode. Can you imagine? 96% of the 1 crore policies were issued digitally. So our claims are completely digestible. So it's been a mixed bag for us. And hearing from what Shashank said, and I must actually, with Shashank's permission, I will certainly take 30 seconds to invert your picture. So Shashank said the high end will go to low end will go to used car, and used car will possibly go to the two-wheeler. I actually inverted the picture and I started visualizing for insurance. It's a great sign because the public transport user will go to motorbike. Motorbike will go to entry level will possibly, and I want to stop at motorbike and entry level, which means these two segments will grow, which obviously means that the insurance industry will grow in the times to come. So I'm very positive about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very interesting point that you're mentioning. I mean, again, looking at one of the elements on digitization, as in the whole insurance process, there is a lot of physical interaction, right? You also need to go and, I mean, I keep getting reminders every year, okay, renew your policy. In fact, that reminds me, I got to renew my policy. The thing basically is that, I mean, why is it that, I mean, are you looking at some longer term solutions? Are you looking at how the entire process of claim settlement and all, where, the surveyor actually has to go to the dealership? I mean, are you looking at any kind of digitization in those elements too?
So two parts, Mohit. One is the renewal, second is the surveying. And I reiterate, and I can now, I likely speak for myself, but to a large extent, industry is at the same situation. Right from buying till the payment of money, claim money in customer's account. Trust me, the customer does not need to see an insurance company's face today. This industry is digitized to this extent. At least my company is digitized to the extent. So I tell you, I mean, about 50%, 45% of our private car and roughly about 50% of our two-wheeler renewals are happening on my website. These are people who are actually coming and renewing it on my website. I'm not taking into account the entire dealership. So Shashank ji said that the financing as an integral part of the entire buying journey is still not digital. And Shashank missed that there is also an insurance which is a part of the entire buying journey. Shashank, it's 100% digital. 100%. All your dealerships can actually issue cover note, certificate of policy, are issuing through digital. There's absolutely zero interaction with the insurance companies. So if I take the entire thing into account, there's a sizable digital renewal which is happening. So you don't need to actually get in touch with the insurance company. There is one element where sometimes, and And it happened this time also, when if there is a break-in, if you forget to renew your insurance policy, car insurance in time, then the insurance company would want to physically inspect the vehicle, that it's it should be in the whether there's not a pre-loss or stuff like that. So in the COVID phase, we personally waived that requirement. So we said, if there's a break-in, it's okay, it's a COVID situation, we will renew it, which means the 100% of the renewal became digital as far as we were concerned. So customer doesn't need to, customer can go to my dealership friends where you have the POS solutions, customer can go to website, customer can go anywhere and do the digital part. The other important part that you mentioned, and extremely important, is what happens in the event of a claim. I have to survey the car, right? Now, or I have to survey the vehicle. Today, a large part of surveying can happen digitally. So we have something, what we very fondly call in our organization is Binix surveyor or Binix channel. So yes, a physical survey will happen, but a survey will happen because that's also the law of the land. But surveyor can use our mobile applications and do it. So I'll tell you how the surveying is happening today. Surveying is happening today. The dealership garages are video enabled. So there can be video surveys at the garages, and my claims officer sitting in the office remotely will look at the entire process and will approve the claim digitally. Right. Zero human intervention. The surveyor can actually go to customer's place and use the HDFC Ergo mobile application, which all our surveyors are equipped with, and there is zero paper movement. So the entire thing can get surveyed. He'll key in the information. He'll come to my approving desk, and the survey can get approved. So, and as I earlier mentioned, I mean, today roughly about 65-70% of our surveys are happening digitally. So the industry is evolving. We as a company are fairly evolving, and most importantly, it's something which we tend to forget. My dealerships are evolving. So as I mentioned, see the amount of digital surveying that the dealerships today are doing. You'll be amazed. So there's a great extent of digitization which insurance has brought in these times. Yeah.
Very interesting. So, I mean, clearly from HDFC Ergo perspective, dealers can expect to remain a critical part of the value chain, if I hear you right. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I told you. So if you see of the motor insurance, so I told you industry is, roughly about 36% of the total industry premium is motor insurance. And of that 36, roughly about 1/3 is dealership. So 10-11%. Right. For us, Mohit, right, of the motor insurance that HDFC Ergo writes, roughly about 50% comes from dealerships. So for me, dealerships are a very, very critical and a big channel. And see how things have evolved. Even the regulation has recognized dealers as a key channel, and now that the motor dealers in the country are a regulated entity, which means the extent of customer service focus, the extent of transparency in the entire buying and servicing process has gone to a different level. Right. So dealers absolutely are a very, very critical channel for HDFC.
Wow, great. Okay, so at this point of time, I would basically invite all the audience members to start sending in your questions. As we basically, I will come to just a couple of thoughts towards the end to share, some of the things. You can start sending the questions in. There are a few questions already coming in. I will share that in a moment. But while you are doing all that, let me quickly, help look at some of the things from our side, what we are looking at. One thing, of course, looking at the fact that, we are going to see the buying power under pressure, at least in the immediate terms. Consumers will definitely be looking for price. I think Naveen basically mentioned it very clearly, and I think Shashank also kind of resonated with it, whether it's the telescoping of demand or however we see it. Clearly, you will see that life items are more prioritized over lifestyle ones, something which, Naveen alluded to. And again, I think we didn't talk much about it, but I think probably we will reserve that for the next one, where we talk about how collaborative shopping is something that we are seeing already on the rise and will continue to move, as consumers shift to online shopping. You are largely to look at, acceleration away from face-to-face. And I think Shashank very nicely said phygital. So basically, how do I seamlessly move between this omni-channel experience, which basically means that the handoffs need to be seamless and need to be very intelligent across the touch points. Consumers likely to demand contactless transactions. We talked about it again. Basically, how, I mean, I think Anuj, you said it very nicely. My entire value journey, my entire customer journey today, you don't need to see the face of the dealer. And that basically makes it completely ready for a COVID kind of a situation that we are all facing. In terms of looking at privacy norms, again, we didn't talk about it much today, but I think one thing that we are generally seeing, while there was a huge movement towards privacy, we are likely to see some of this expectation from consumers morph. There has been, I mean, and I'm sure with digital solutions, consumers will become more and more confident that while, yes, there is a compromise in privacy somewhere, but frankly speaking, it is in their benefit, in their interest. And I think most importantly, what Shashank said at the beginning of the discussion, that how do I build customer confidence? How can I assure the customer that the dealer will be there for him? I am there for him. Be assured that this is something which is just something that we are living with. We have changed our processes, adapted our execution and operations. So basically looking at a lot of both reactive and proactive communication. All I would like to say is that I think sum it up with what Steve Jobs once said: you got to start with the customer experience and work backwards. The technology, not the other way around. And I think looking at redesigning our operations from what again Naveen said globally or whether in India, keeping that customer behavior, the likely impact, giving him the confidence, and working from that starting point is where we all need to focus on. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I will just take the questions now. There is a barrage of questions here. Let me start with the first one here. It's coming from Akshay Vyas. How do you see commercial business in the coming years? This is for you, Shashank.
Yeah, so again, I think when there is some sort of a initial phase, I believe will be there will be a negative as far as commercial vehicles go. But going forward, of course, there would be a bounce back Indian economy, and I think it depends on how. It's only a question of how quickly, as discussed, whether it's a V or a bathtub or a Nike swoosh. Right. So it definitely for India at least I can say the long term will be very positive.
Very good. There's one more question coming in for you, Shashank. It's coming from Piyush Langal. And basically the question that he's asking is, the demand is going to be there for the low budget car. How do you see product innovations? Or maybe the question is, what product innovations do you see in light of the COVID-19, especially in the small car, if you can talk about it?
Yeah, so I think basically car, there are of course many new technologies in terms of engine, etc., which I'm not going to get into that. Right. We might see, for example, a demand even in smaller engines for greater power, which points to a particular type of technology. We may see, for example, lower emission requirements and so on and so forth. That's a different thing. But maybe in terms of such things, and some of the consumers have actually been asking is, would you like, they would like to have, for example, accessories like partition between the front and the back end of the cabin within the car. Or they may like to have some sort of a sanitizing equipment or some thing which makes it very easy for. So those are things which are the feedback which we are getting more in the accessory part rather than the basic technology. But as I said, basic technology itself can also change going forward regarding power, performance, or emission requirements from even small cars.
Interesting. So Anuj, a question for you. This is from Vinkesh Gulati. In some cases of motor accident, the surveyor is asking for e-pass from government for travel to pass the claim. Is it mandatory? I mean, I think it's a technical question. I don't know if you can address that. We can't hear you, Anuj.
Can you hear now?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know how I went on mute. No, so I'm saying, no, Venkesh, e-pass is not mandatory. This must have arisen because of the recent lockdown where surveyor possibly wanted to play it safe, that in case he ventures out for a surveying, the police the cops will question him. Yeah. But I think as and when the situation in any case has started opening up and specifically so it's not mandatory by the government. I mean, this is obviously, it's the requirement. It was the requirement during the COVID lockdown phase. But insurance companies in any case are now under the essential services. So whichever parts of the red zones of the country which are still shut, insurance is still an essential service. So that can be managed. I'm sure most
Interesting.
insurance companies would have already procured passes for their surveys and themselves. Yeah.
Okay, great. Another question coming from Samir Dua. Basically, we talked a lot about sales. Can you touch around the digital footprint on the service side? What are the OEMs doing besides allowing online scheduling? I think either one of you gentlemen can take it, Naveen or Shashank. On the service side, what kind
Service
of...
side, I think, see, what we've been telling, what we've been guiding our dealers also is, wherever permissions have been given, primarily, basically from a percentage number of people that can come to dealerships, etc.
Right.
Like test drive, like deliveries, service is something that cannot be done online. You have to physically take the vehicle in, repair it or service it, and then do whatever is necessary. So we've been telling them, yes, online scheduling has been offered by most of the OEMs, and I think that is a possibility to facilitate the transaction. Online approvals during the service can be taken, which has been done from our side also. So these are aspects, but the physical process of servicing the car cannot be done online. I don't think so that's possible, except if you are doing some patch upgrades of some software, etc.
Yeah, but maybe Mohit, I can add that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so it's as he said, physically vehicle has to be there, and it's not just scheduling.
Right.
You can have job card opening, for example, largely done on digital way.
Right.
You can have, for example, the vehicle history, which is available to the service advisors right in front of the consumer. Or as he says, maybe at some point of time, even the vehicle movement inside the workshop, we are using technologies actually which sort of indicates where exact position is of the vehicle in the entire journey within the workshop. So you know what time is spent at what station, or what is the even the requirement of spare parts, for example, or taking online approvals from consumers, guiding some extra work. All those things are being done, and I think going forward, technology will enable us to have even more smoother flow of vehicles coming to the workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to add to that, I think for everybody, I think one part is definitely the operational side, which is the dealer side. The other side is also the consumer side, right? What is the customer's propensity? Which customers are likely to take on what kind of packages, sanitization packages and stuff. I mean, I think there is a lot of work, that companies are doing right now to figure out, how can I really understand or personalize my offer to that individual customer. It's not just about the in-house operations, but also I think the external response or the external customer understanding. So, okay, I have one more question for you, Anuj. Can insurance companies develop an online portal for all dealers to send link to customers to pay premiums? Also, a tie-up with finance to buy a new vehicle. In fact, I was going to ask that question too, because are we looking at an Amazon coming up in insurance or in the auto retailing world?
See, the insurance, I mean, the 190 crore.
Sorry, let me say, this question is from Dhawal. Sorry, just to say that, please. Yeah, please, Anuj, go ahead.
Sure. So, Mohit, 190,000 crore industry would be of interest to everybody. So, why would any particular name, like to move out of, stay away from this industry? So, I'll not be surprised. Some of these names, the brands that you've named would be there in the insurance. Specifically to the question that Dhawal asked, yes, there are digital portals, digital applications available by your insurance companies today, where the customer can actually renew the policy online, and those will take to the net banking route, and the customer can play. As I said, the entire journey can be digital. So yes, those portals can be developed. In my opinion, those portals are already have. In fact, for dealers, whichever OEM you are a partner, you are a part of, that OEM has a today through the MISP route, the motor insurance service provider route. All the OEMs have their portals designed. The OEM through their MISPs have designed portals for their dealerships and the customer where the transaction can happen. Tie up with the bankers. Except for the name that I share, HDFC, I have no connection with HDFC Bank. So for that, you will have to get in touch with your banker, where the payment online, where the payment systems, payment tie-ups can happen, the banking tie-ups can happen. But I'm sure, it's doable, absolutely. But as far as the renewals are concerned, 100% doable.
Okay, great. Another question coming from Ayush Agarwal. How can small auto dealerships shift customer experience online prudently? And I think I would also, probably include rural sales. So maybe Shashank, could you take that part? Because I think you have a big rural footprint also, right? And you have lots of dealerships in all formats.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that shifting is not really very different. What we have found is that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 consumers with the penetration of the smartphone and the internet, I think it's roughly the behavior is actually converging. It's not really very different. It requires, of course, a little bit of hardware and probably a change in some systems. More importantly, I think is the mindset change, which is required more than anything else.
Right.
There's this general thought that smaller places wouldn't require that sort of digitalization. It's probably not true. And having said that, I must say that the smaller dealers also, we have we have the process called hyperlocal, which actually essentially addresses the lower end of the consumer buying funnel. So you have the awareness, you have the consideration, and then you have the actual conversion. And that is what the dealers operate in most of the time. So we still find awareness and consideration built is largely by the OEMs, but going down the funnel and you have inquiry level conversion, those of course the dealers, whether small or large, rural or urban, need to have those systems to quickly address. The way you address inquiry system, we keep telling our dealers everywhere, whether it's small place or large, is the time which you need to take to respond to the query. It's quite different from an otherwise a physical visit to the showroom. So I think those points are also very much important if you want to digitalize small or big dealerships. Remotely. Sorry.
I think there are two questions here, and I'm going to combine them because both of the questions are highlighting a very interesting dimension, and I think all three of you can look at it. The point basically is that is the digitalization going to lead to the end of the showroom concept? And what will happen to the frontline sales force? So this question coming from Srilata as well as Murali Krishna Nair. Are frontline sales force becoming redundant? Are dealerships showroom becoming redundant? Naveen, you want to take that? Maybe then Shashank.
Yeah, this is exactly what I told you earlier. I was watching one of the webinars where people were saying will we still asked to make Taj Mahals? I think somebody from the panel was also part of that. So I think it's difficult to kind of make such assumptions and then move so quickly, because as I said, what you're seeing is a temporary phenomenon. The whole behavior will change the day a vaccine is discovered.
Right.
When I know that I step out of my house and there's nothing, that's stopping me. Now, of course, there is a threat of the virus, which is making people go in this particular way. And there are some speed ups that have happened. Mr. Tyagi also referred to them. I mean, these are things which are true for today. But are they going to be true, 6 months from now, or we'll just laugh it off and say, yeah, this is how we used to work during this time.
Right.
So I think we have to be very careful. I don't think so. Long-term judgment can be made based on this short-term behavioral change.
Right.
What I would say.
Yeah. Shashank, you want to add something to that? Because it's a big feeling in some people, especially dealership employees. I mean, am I going to become redundant? Why should I move? Why should I change?
Yeah. So I think, it would be a mix. As one of your slides pointed out, still people, 90% of the people actually go to the showroom.
Right.
Even the recent surveys regarding during the COVID thing also indicated that the showroom visit will still be on.
Right.
It's not as if people will, even within COVID, and of course, 6-7 months later, it can change. So I again come to the same thing, that you require to be physically present also in an item like a car. However, because much of the journey is now being performed in the digital platform, you also need to have a presence in the digital landscape. Right. And that is why when Maruti Suzuki initially used to say, let's see how many showrooms we have, how many cities we cover. But we also now see what is our share of network in the digital space. So you have GMBs, the Google business pages, or you have web pages or the Facebook, or you have dealers' own web pages, etc., websites. So those are also very important. So they need not be exclusive. It's not as if they were. Second thing is on the question about how the dealer salesman role will change. Of course, the role will change a little bit because, earlier salesmen used to advise the consumer which product to buy. And as we just discussed, they already have decided, and many of them have information much more than what. So people need to be updated. And also the expectation of the consumer is now different. And for that, I think training is required. You can't eliminate sales people altogether. In fact, they won't be eliminated. Probably they'll have even a more important role to play. But that is after taking into account the changes in consumer behavior. So I think all roles are here. The relative shift may happen in terms of the importance to those roles.
Well, I think that's well said. I think we have already exceeded our time, gentlemen. It's 10 minutes over. I would probably like to conclude it here. There are some more questions, and I'm sure someone from the speaking team can take care of it. I want to thank all three of you, Shashank, Naveen, Anuj. It has been a pleasure listening to you, your thoughts. And I think what you are putting forth is clearly a very clear, thought process. Yes, we don't know everything, but I think it is, we need to make these steps that we already started taking somewhere. COVID is just accelerating those changes, as you rightly said. I think we need to start taking baby steps in the same direction. Maybe, the frequency needs to change. We need to be much faster and much more aware. Clearly, I think, I would look forward to Anuj's new poem the next time of, coronavirus se hum kaise nikle, haan, corona chala gaya. So, aur hum badal gaye. So I think
you can send it to us digitally then, sir.
And I think on that note, thank you very much once again. And I will hand it over to the speaking team.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone here who have joined us for this fantastic panel, and thank you so much to our participants. Special thanks to Mr. Mohit Arora for leading the discussion phenomenally and bringing out all the pivotal questions that the audience had in their minds, and I'm sure the discussion has really helped them a lot. And also thank you to all our other panelists for their valuable time for the discussion. To everyone out there, stay safe, and please stay safe and take care of yourself. Thank you so much.